Chapter 11 talks about threats to internal validity or other explanations that might explain what we think we're seeing in a study. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that we want to find this causal relationship, and yet there may be some confounding variable that's there behind us and that may be explaining what we see. So we've talked about three explanations already. Design confounds. So for example, perhaps there are more children who sit still in the effort group and fewer in the no effort group. And if there's a difference there in terms of one of those other variables, then we can't conclude that our intervention led to more effort. Selection effects. Remember that in the Lovaas and autism study, that Lovaas allowed families to self-select which group they wanted to be in. And so one of the difficulties we have is we don't know that the two groups are similar to each other. And order effects. We wanted, in a good study, we want to be able to say that it's not about the order, but something else, our intervention, our treatment that causes the effect. And so we randomly assign people to the different groups. Now, in a really bad experiment, and Beth Morling talks about a number of really bad experiments and focuses on them in this chapter. In a really bad pre-test, post-test design experiment, the participants are given a pre-test, a treatment, and a post-test. So for example, campers are assessed in terms of the amount of rowdy behavior that they're exhibiting. The experimenters reduce the amount of sugar that the campers are given, and then we reassess the amount of rowdy behavior that they're engaging in. Or depressed women are assessed for depression. They're in psychotherapy, given cognitive therapy, and we again measure their depression. In each of these cases, we don't know what the cause of any change, any potential changes. So, if we see this behavior here, that the rambunctious behavior drops as a result of a week-long sugar-free diet, or the depression drops as a result of psychotherapy, we're not really able to say why that difference occurred, particularly in a one group test or experiment like this. So we're going to talk about 6 more threats. So we've already talked about 3, right? We're going to talk about 6 more threats to internal validity in one group pre-test, post-test designs. So for example, with maturation, one of the things that we may suggest or may believe is that with time, our groups differ. So for example, if we were looking at 3-year-olds and counting their vocabulary size and then came back at 3.5, probably their vocabulary size and a whole variety of different effects are shifting. Now, let's go back and talk about depression. Without a a comparison group, we don't know that, that it's the therapy that's causing the change. It might just be that time changed it, that across time it changed. Now, adding a second group here, a no therapy group, helped us to recognize that, yes, there was some, maturation effect. Notice that they are going down here. Their depression score decreases, and yet in our treatment group, it decreases even more. So it suggests that while there was some maturation, there was also a treatment effect. Okay, and so having a comparison group helps us to recognize what's going on here and identify what kind of maturation effect there is, or if there is. There may be a history effect. So, for example, if we only have a one group assessment, it may be that people who are not exposed to the Go Green campaign were not, it may be that, well, we have no idea whether the Go Green campaign is effective or not. Having both groups there, in this case, shows that the Go Green campaign didn't work because everyone, all the dorms, reduced their energy use by the same amount during the fall. Now, our history effects are impacted in or prevented in a number of different ways. One is that, we're able to recognize it with a second kind of group. Here, we're able to say in B that there was decreased energy use for both groups, but the Go Green dorms usage decreased even more, indicating that the campaign worked in addition to weather. And in this case, weather is a cause of the history group. Presumably, this is an assessment done during the spring of the year rather than the fall. So this is a figure that I pulled out of an article in the New York Times looking at vaccination status and hospitalizations at the end of 2021 and beginning of 2022, showing that there is a significant difference between the number of hospitalizations among unvaccinated people relative to those people who are vaccinated without a booster and those with a booster. Now, one of the things that we should be wondering is this group here or the unvaccinated group is higher already, presumably before people are really getting vaccinated. And perhaps there's something else going on, that maybe they're engaging in fewer safe just health safe our behaviors. Also, if we're looking at this group, what is it that's happening here? Maybe there's something else that's going on here that's explaining what we're seeing. So another thing that can happen is that there's some regression to the mean across time. So Regression to the mean is when extreme scores just move back into the more typical range. And perhaps that was what was going on with the pre-therapy or with the cognitive therapy group. Except that our no therapy group allows us to rule that out. Both groups started out extreme, but the therapy group improved even more. Now, in this case, and notice these are all made up data, in this case, it's possible that we have some regression because the therapy group started out more extreme. And so they ended up less extreme here. One of the things that happens here is certainly it looks like they were more extreme. And so maybe we'd be thinking about some regression towards the mean. But that doesn't in and of itself explain what happened here. When we're even more extreme here. It seems like therapy must also have had some sort of influence. I'm going to stop here. This is a complicated chapter or complicated section. So I'm going to break it up and look at some more threats in the next video. Keep playing with these ideas and take care. Bye-bye.